What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. Today, I want to talk about a certain segment of society in America, right, that rears its ugly head all the time, but just in different ways, right? And I'm going to attach a video of this guy on TikTok who had an experience that got me to do this video, because I had not the same experience as him, but I had somewhat similar experience. Now, I want to talk, the type of people I'm talking about are the former traitors of America, the former enemies of America, the Confederacy, right? First, they were called the Confederacy. They were the most unpatriotic, traitorous groups of people on the planet, right? They went against their country because they didn't like the decision that their country made, which is to abolish slavery. They believed in slavery. They believed that white people should enslave African people and that African people are subhuman. They believed it with all their might and heart, and they were willing to go to war and kill for it, right? They believed that African people should be subjugated to them because God gave them the right, right? First, they were called Confederacy. When they finally lost that Civil War, then they became the Dixiecrats. Then they became the Democrats. Then in the 60s, they went from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party, right? Then when the Republican Party started having factions like moderates and liberals, they became the conservatives. They call themselves conservative. That's the group, that's the faction within the Republican Party that still hold the Confederate traitorous views, you know, most. That's the house at which they lay their bed in, where they sleep and they eat and they plan, right? Within the conservative section. And these groups of people like to hide themselves within political parties, because when they're Democrats, they were conservative Democrats. The Democratic Party itself is a party, but within the party there's subgroups, and the subgroups, which is the conservatives, those are the ones who are the old Confederates who wish things were the way they used to be back when they had their own country and they had slaves, right? So because they're no longer the Confederacy, the way they wield their power and they try to push their agenda along piece by piece to get back what they lost, they join these parties and they create their own factions within the party. I.e., like I said, you got the conservatives and the Democrat side. They went over to the Republican side. The Republican now is the base for white racism, white Christian evangelical extremism. They believe that we should be slaves, that white people inherently should be on top because Jesus is white. Everything is white. Everything by default should be white, right? And that's just what they believe. They used to be called, now they were the Tea Party, right? That's what they call themselves. Now they call themselves MAGA, right? They're the MAGA party, right? They worship Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump actually, to be honest, doesn't believe any of that stuff. He's just a very self-absorbed, egotistical, narcissistic man-child that suffers from affluenza, right? And he's off his right. He doesn't care about anybody himself, but these people have used him and they've manifested him into a what do you call a mascot for their agenda, right? MAGA, right? So you can MAGA, Tea Party, conservatives, Dixiecrats, Confederacy, right? So with that being said, I went to West Virginia once, right? Because being from Washington D.C., we would go before the MGM popped up in Maryland. If we wanted to go gamble, we would go up to West Virginia and go gamble up there, right? So that means people like myself will go up to West Virginia. And there's one time I went to, now let me tell you something. You ain't seen a hood until you went to a white hood. You ain't seen poverty until you went to a white area of poverty. Like their version of poverty is just, I would live in our ghettos any day versus their ghettos. That is crazy, right? The lack of development. Now, West Virginia, which is the district that's still Democratic, but they're conservative Democrats. That's why, if you notice, most of the senators coming out of there are conservative senators. You got Joe Manchin. Joe Lieberman was that before. They're conservative, but for some reason they still stay on the Democratic side. West Virginia has always been a conservative Democratic state, right? Very, 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 very racist. Right, so I went to a swap meet. I went to a what do you call it, like a swap meet, you know, or what do you call it, you know, where they sell used goods or whatever. And when I got there, right, I'm the only black guy. Bunch of super country, super ghetto trailer park white folk. When they saw me there, right, they were looking at me like I was an alien. They were like, They couldn't believe I was there. They was like, why is he here at this place? Like, they were shocked. And me, I didn't care. And I was with my wife too. Me and my chocolatey black Nigerian freaking origin wife. Me and her walking in this swap meet with all these super podunk, hillbilly, Hatfield McCoy white folk, right? All of them related to each other. All of them, right? So I go back there. I'm looking at all the things that they got for sale. And I noticed there's a lot of Confederate memorabilia. A lot of swastikas. A lot of Ku Klux Klan memorabilia. They had robes. They had the patches and badges. They had every manner of old Confederate uniforms, old Confederate everything. And I was just like, man. I said, you guys are like, you could tell this is old family heirlooms, whatever, just being passed down. The whole swap meet was a straight racist Ku Klux Klan, KKK, neo-Nazi, Confederate, F all black people type of thing. I saw old racist black paraphernalia, blackface paraphernalia, old racist trinkets and things that used to be made to make fun of black people to, you know, that white people would buy. You know, it was crazy. I'm talking about the boo-boos, the Aunt Jemimas, the Uncle Ben's type, those type of black exploitative paraphernalia, along with all the racist, I'm talking about unapologetically white, racist, clear as day. I mean, the thing is, all these people is poor as hell, right? I'm talking about poor, right? I knew that I had more, I just knew that I was doing much better than every single person up in there. Me and my wife, black people, you know. And I was just like, God, and I wasn't even uncomfortable because I just knew, because I'm about that life. So I'm like, what y'all going, you know, what? I'm here, right? And it was just the oddest thing that there are people who don't go into those environments, right? Who don't understand that these people, they really do believe this, right? And because they can hide behind political parties and words are used for their agenda is if they could, they would put us back into slavery. If it was okay with them, they would put us back into slavery, right? These are the same people that came down in January 6th and they stormed the Capitol. Now, I just want to say this for everybody who watched me and watches Pan-African Strike Back, right? I actually told Pan-African Strike Back that I was there. I was there during January 6th. I don't tell anybody what I do for a living, right? Because none of y'all business, right? But I told him I was there. I saw it. I visually saw it. I saw Trump say what he said, and I saw them go wreck shit. I saw it with my own eyes, and I told him. But people who are indoctrinated in a cult, and Pan-African Strike Back is indoctrinated in a cult, you know, and he has the propensity to be indoctrinated. He used to be a Seventh-day Adventist, right? People like that, they're susceptible, right? They're susceptible. There's a lot of people who are susceptible to stuff. They manifest and create their own narrative behind what it is that they want to believe. They want to believe it, right? So they use cognitive dissonance, his favorite word, right, to justify everything that they believe, even though it's absolutely wrong, right? Like, for instance, Donald Trump is done, right? Donald Trump is, if you're paying attention to what's happening in the real world, Donald Trump and all the people around him are snitching on him because he did what he did. And they're admitting that they did what they did. They're in court right now, right? But you won't hear any of these right-wing conservative black people talk about what's happening in real life. They'll still talk about Biden's son's laptop, but they won't talk about Jared Kushner, who literally got $2 billion from the Saudis after 6 months after going over there and making a deal. Like, it's like they don't really live in reality, because if they were to live in reality, the things that they say wouldn't make any sense to even to them. So they have to make shit up or pretend like what's happening is not happening. They have to pretend like what they see is not actually what they see. They have to pretend like what's happening in the world is not actually happening, and they play in their own fantasy, and they just make shit up. That's why you can't take none of them seriously, right? But only a few black people get caught up in the cult of white supremacy, right? And he's just one of them that's caught up in the cult of white supremacy, you know, and there's a few of them, but they'll come out of it eventually. I mean, it's just, some people are just weak mentally and they're susceptible to it. It's just what it is. People get caught up in religion. They get caught up in all these. We have our own. We got the Hebrew Israelites. People are caught up in fantasy. They're caught up in these things because living in reality is hard. right? Sometimes it's not as entertaining. Sometimes when you live in reality, it's not conducive to you and what you want to do and what it is you want to believe in. Some people just want to believe in certain things instead of just having factual truth and just understanding and knowing exactly what's actually really happening. But anyway, there's white people in this country that want to re-enslave us. There's white people in this country who are upset that they're losing power. They know they're losing power. They know that the good times is over. The times when Make America Great Again, which is a trope that was used back in the days to fight against the civil rights movement. Make America Great is not something Trump made up. Trump and his advisors, his racist advisors, who are using him in his dumb, stupid, narcissistic, arrogant, affluenza suffering, mentally ill, rich, spoon-fed white orange dude from Germany, whose daddy was a Democratic conservative racist, and his grandfather was also a Democratic conservative racist in the higher echelons of New York and Wall Street, right? That's where they made their money, right? They disregard all the racist things that Trump has said and done in action, but they hold on to one thing that one of it's whatever, you know. Anyway, white people in this country, certain white people, right, who call themselves conservative, they call themselves MAGA, they call themselves Tea Party, they call themselves Republicans. Not all Republicans, but that's the Republican Party is the current vehicle which they like to sit in. There's a current party at which they like to lay down their platform, and slowly but surely through legislation, through the state and federal, they're trying to grab back pieces of the thing that they used to have back when they were thriving, back when America was great again. And America was great again when black people were slaves and they was making money and they didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to work. They didn't do nothing. They just make the slaves do it, right? Make the Africans do it. They can, you know, they'd go out and grape a couple Indians whenever they wanted to get their rocks off. You know, grape a couple, you know, house slaves whenever they want to get their rocks off, right? They can do anything they want. No accountability. That's when America's great when it compared to them. But anyway, I just want y'all to keep in mind that these people, they're the culture that's being canceled in America, and they're fighting like hell, right, to preserve their way of life and their way of thinking. They're ultimately going to lose, but they're still here, and they still affect us. Most of them are poor, because the rich ones, they don't really care about all this stuff. They just use this racist agenda to push their agenda. They need their soldiers to be activated to do the things they need them to do. They need their soldiers to be stupid and dumb so they can fall for all the things they've been falling for, and they need them to stay stupid and dumb so they can continue to work the stupid and dumb jobs that they need to keep the rich people rich, right? That's just how it works. But anyway, without further ado, I'm gonna attach this link to another black guy who had a situation like this, but his is way more detailed, and he definitely dropped the mic in that situation. And I'm sure other black people had similar situations when they ventured into white America, because most black people, we don't actually go into white America. We bypass white America to go to the black part. That's what we do, right? That's why you got people like American First Rifleman. You can tell he lived and grew up with white people, and he has to survive. He survives by capitulating to the white thought. He has to, even though he pretends to be pro-black, he's actually anti-black, and he has to do that in order to survive in the environments which he lives in. There's a lot of, you notice, most of the coons, right, live in the areas where you have to be a coon to survive. You can't be pro-black in certain places in America. That's a quick way to get killed, right? But you have to be coon. Yeah, sometimes you got to put the mask on and be a coon in order to survive in these areas. And they manifest themselves on the internet like American First Rifleman. And, you know, and then you got Brandon, who's from California. There's no black people in California, right? Like, you notice that the people who are the most coonish, they don't really live in black America. They live on the outskirts where the black population is so small that they have to capitulate to the greater white society, no matter what white society that is, in order to survive and in order to thrive in any manner of life or whatever. And that's just how it is, right? So anyway, without further ado, this is Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach them. I'm out.
How I came to buy this. So I get a call from one of my friends who had just visited this flea market, and he said that they have a bunch of cool stuff. Me, flea markets, cool shit, I'm in there. I go to this flea market in this very rural area in Indiana. Now this is deep red Indiana territory, fits perfectly down there with Alabama and Mississippi. I walk in and I see it is a large crowd of older white people, 50 and up. They are looking at me like I just walked off of a UFO. As I'm walking around, I'm seeing a lot of Confederate flag themed memorabilia. So with all these white people here, I said I'm going to buy one of these flags because I want to see what their reaction is to a black guy buying a Confederate flag. So I got it and I'm carrying it very visibly so everybody can see that I have it. And I definitely got their attention. I'm in line and this younger white dude says, man, I gotta ask you, why you buying the Confederate flag? And I can tell he asked what a lot of people were wondering. So a lot of ears start to tune in. And I asked him, what do you think I got it for? And he said, hopefully to burn it or wipe your ass with it. I got a teammate. The room was full of people that were like his racist grandparents he didn't like. Immediately after he says that, an older white lady says,
"That's so unpatriotic. Why would you want to be disrespectful to American heritage?"
And I'm like, youngster, stand down. I got this. Ma'am, you are right and you are completely wrong about something. You are right about the fact that it is American heritage, but it is a side of American heritage. And that side wanted to preserve the institution of slavery and felt that blacks were subhuman. So it is American heritage, but it is reflective of the team that you are playing on when it comes to American heritage. And what you are completely wrong about is the Confederacy is the most unpatriotic group of people in American history. Patriotism is loyalty to your country and the person chosen to run your country. In this case, Abraham Lincoln was elected president of the United States, and the United States had chose a direction, and the Confederacy did not agree with that and wanted to secede from the United States. They engaged in an act of war against the government. If the Confederates were patriots, they would have followed the direction that the country was going and the leader that was elected to run this country. What they did was they chose to pick up arms and go to war against the United States of America. That is the most treasonous, unpatriotic thing in American history. Then an older white guy chimes in and he says this.
Well, why do y'all always blame America for slavery? Slavery was in Africa. Slavery was in Rome. Slavery existed in a lot of other places outside of America.
Youngster, they fucking with the wrong one. Sir, there is one ingredient in American slavery that made it completely different from any other form of slavery that existed on the planet before it. And that ingredient was based on a pseudoscience saying that the people being subjugated were not even a part of the human race. They were not Homo sapiens. They were subhuman. So the people being enslaved were not even being considered human beings. Slavery in other places never had that element. In Rome and Africa, the people being subjugated were not seen as not being human. It was based solely on might is right. I defeated you. You can't beat me. Go take care of my cattle. But the idea that Africans were not even humans made American slavery totally different. It was more dehumanizing than any other form of slavery that existed on the planet before. This is an American ingenuity. If I own you and you have a kid, I own your kid. And if your kid has a kid, I own that kid. I own your whole bloodline. It is an egregious miscalculation to equate slavery in Africa, slavery in Rome, and what the fuck was going on in America. Then I hear this.
And I got a lot of those flags around my house, and I don't understand why people get all in a tizzy about this.
Okay, ma'am, let me ask you this. If we was in Germany and somebody was flying the little mustache guy's flag and saying that it was a part of German heritage, do you think that would be right?
It is a part of German heritage. I don't see why it would be disrespectful.
Youngster, this bitch super racist. She had a little boy with her, and I asked her, was that her grandson or something? She says yes, he was autistic. So I told her, ma'am, do you realize that if you lived in Germany at that time, your grandson would have been euthanized under the Nazi regime? Shut her ass up. The rest of them are looking dumbfounded, and youngster looking like we just won the Super Bowl. Got to the parking lot, chopped it up with Youngster. He's super cool. He invited me to his bonfire where we burning this damn thing.